Hi, welcome to That's My Story. My guest today has been part of my journey for, several years now, and she's helped me understand mindfulness in connection to diet and nutrition. I'd like to welcome Lisa Lou from Georgina Nurse Practitioner-Led Clinic. Mouthful. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited because, you've been part of my journey for so long. So for you to be a guest on our show and talk about your story and what you do, I think it's very inspiring. And you have inspired me greatly. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you for being on. So when I said that you've been part of my journey, I was referred to you because, hey, we had to get my blood sugars under control. Ooh, what does that mean? And pre-diabetic. So I was asked to see you, and I was asked to see you because you're a registered dietitian.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right. So part of what I was wondering if before we get started, if you could just sort of explain to people what a registered dietitian is.
Yeah, of course. So registered dietitians are, we call ourselves the experts of food and nutrition.
Yes.
And so basically I work with clients to, talk about the foods they're eating. And sometimes we expand to outside the food, talk about their lifestyle as well, how active they are, how's their sleep, everything about their self-care and lifestyle. And we use that as a way to help them manage their maybe some chronic conditions that they're dealing with, or maybe even just to prevent some of these chronic conditions.
Okay, and that's what you've helped me with over the last several years, as well as the other parts of the journey. But this is your journey. So Lisa, often I like to start at the beginning. So your beginning, where were you born?
So I was born in Hong Kong, and I lived there for about 5 years and before I came to Canada. So I came to Canada when I was 5 years old. We still have lots of family that's still in Hong Kong. So when we came, I had an aunt and uncle here on my mom's side. And so my parents, my brother, my older brother, and we came to Canada back in 1993.
Okay. And that's sort of a brave move, right? Like that's big. For them to leave Hong Kong to come here, that was big.
Yeah,
so,
thinking back now, for sure, it was a huge change for them. I didn't really know much at the time, right? So
yeah, because you're 5, right? So you don't have. That's what I was going to say. So, like when you started school, did you start kindergarten, or like what happened when they did schooling?
Yeah, I started. I think it was I can't remember if there was junior and senior kindergarten back then, but I do remember being in 1 year of kindergarten when I first came here.
Okay, so now let's get this straight. You came from Hong Kong. Did you speak any English?
Not a word.
Okay. In retrospect, when you're sitting here and you say that you didn't speak any English, do you understand what like how big that is to realize you're putting a child in school and they don't speak any English?
Definitely. I still recall when those days actually, when I still remember being in kindergarten and there wasn't anyone in my class who spoke Cantonese, which is my language.
Okay.
And I can't remember if I played with anyone else in class actually, because I just couldn't communicate with anyone. And it wasn't until grade 1 when I still remember there was a girl in my class who spoke my language, and she came up to me and introduced herself and asked me to be her friend. I was so happy. But even then, I still couldn't speak much English. I was still attending ESL classes in school. And it wasn't until probably grade 3 that I can sort of recall being somewhat fluent and being able to converse with other people in English.
I can't even imagine what that would be like for you, because you're with all these kids, and now maybe there's a universal language of kids, which is playing. So
yeah, I think so. That must have been what happened.
Because, I don't think, many of us, I certainly haven't had to struggle with learning a second language, but that really sets the brain up for duality, right? Because you're in school all day long listening to English, having no idea, I don't know, she's telling me to stand up, I don't know.
Yeah.
Were people sensitive? Were the teachers, do you recall if they were sensitive, or was that anything you would have been even aware of at the
I
time?
think it was hard to tell for me at the time, but I mean, I do remember back in the day, and I think that things are different now in schools,
Yeah.
but we weren't allowed to speak a different language. So I remember when I got into the older grades and there, I had friends who spoke my language, we would get in trouble for speaking Cantonese in class.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's not the same now, but yeah, back then, like they really pushed us to like speak English, and I think it was just to help us like really learn that language.
Well, it's a crash course in immersion, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, you are fully immersed. So, okay, so where were you growing up? Where did you grow up when you came to Canada? Where were you?
Yeah, I grew up in Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Okay. All right. So you went through grade school. And now we had talked about it that, the focus for you was on education. So your mom and dad were very focused on you getting the best education. Was that one of the reasons they brought you here, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because the education system in Hong Kong is very, very tough and very, very stressful. So, it's a little bit more, I don't want to say laid back, but it's definitely a lot easier on the kids and there's much more balance. And, it's not just about academics, but also about extracurriculars. And, there's a lot of other things that's focused on here in the Western education system. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of the reasons. But, also like I come from I guess a somewhat traditional Chinese family. And, my parents were very poor when they were younger and they didn't go to high school. And so education was something that was very important for them in their mind. Mm-hmm. And so, from a young age, like we were always kind of taught like, you have to, do well in school, make sure you do well, get into a good university and get a good job. And that was really like their focus to make sure that we had, a good job in the future to give us a stable income, a stable future.
So that became your focus.
Yeah.
Was making sure that happened. I was wondering, I think I shared with you that, in my son's class, when he wanted to play with some of his friends that were from Hong Kong on Saturdays or play hockey, they couldn't play with him. And I think you had the same experience. Saturdays were a busy day for you.
Yeah, I still remember, Saturday was Chinese school in the morning, math school in the afternoon, and then followed by piano classes. And then I had math tutoring afterwards. It was a full day event.
Oh my gosh, you must have been so exhausted.
Yeah.
Such a thing. But again, I'm just thinking, you're also being set up with disciplines.
Yes.
Like that required discipline and sort of understanding that, hey, Saturday's not a play day.
Definitely. And I guess, like also I had a lot of, I came to Canada during the time period when a lot of people from Hong Kong came to Canada. Mm-hmm. And, same culture, so a lot of us were kind of brought up the same way. So I didn't feel like it was too awful because I knew a lot of my friends were going through the same thing too. Like They were also going to Chinese school and math and everything else.
Okay, well, let's fast forward. Then you got through that and then you went through high school. I believe you went through a private high school. You were
so in grade 8, actually before high school, so my last year of elementary school, I went to a boarding school in Brockville, Ontario. And so I was there until I graduated high school.
And then off you went. And did you have any understanding of where you were going to be and what you were going to be studying in university? Did you have any dreams or aspirations?
No, I was just sort of on that path, like, oh, I got to get good grades, I got to do well, I got to just get into a good program that will get me a good job. And, I was just so focused on that. There wasn't really much time for me to kind of really sit back and reflect and think about, okay, well, what is it that I really love to do and what would I, love to do for the rest of my life?
Some of the things that I saw was that you made the Dean's Honor List from 2007 to 2010. You were the recipient of the Elizabeth Landel's Katzman Scholarship. So it seemed your work ethic paid off.
Yes, I would say so.
So what was it that you ended up studying when you went to university?
So I ended up studying nutrition. I had applied for a couple of different programs, and ultimately I did end up choosing to go into nutrition because there was a sort of like a somewhat of an interest, before that. Like I had thought about being a chef at one point, and
makes sense.
But in a Chinese family, the response I got was, well, that's going to be a really hard living, being a chef. So then, nutrition seemed like the better choice at the time.
And
So
it's
that's why I went
culinary.
to nutrition.
I think it makes sense because there is a culinary aspect to that. So what happens when you get a nutrition or you get a degree and you become a registered dietitian? Where do you start looking for work? What was some of your journey for work?
Yeah, so the process is we have to finish our degree and we have to do an internship, either that or a combined master's program in order to get our dietitian designation. So for me, when I finished my undergraduate, I actually went to complete a master's program that also included different internship opportunities so that I could get my dietitian designation. So during that time period, I worked in a few different places. I worked in industry at General Mills for a bit. I worked at a community health center. I worked at a diabetes clinic. And then ultimately, when I graduated, I started to work at the Georgina Nurse Practitioner Clinic.
So that brought you up to Georgina.
Yes, that's right. That was back in 2012.
Wow, 2000. Okay, so you've had a good career. That's a solid career with them. So what did they hire you to do? What was the role? Was it as a dietitian?
Yeah, so I was the only dietitian on the team. So my role would be to provide one-on-one counseling for patients, for things I mentioned earlier, disease prevention, chronic disease management. And also the other part of my role is to do some programming work. So I plan programs and I also facilitate and run these programs at the clinic as well. So these programs are usually offered in group format before the pandemic. So it was sort of, nutrition education and services delivered in a different way.
Fantastic. So, and we're going to talk about some of the programs that you were involved in, and we're also going to maybe talk about, what your role is as in a personal environment and how you're working with those people. So some of the programs, are they available to people in Georgina, or do you have to be part of the GNLPC? Did I say that right? I didn't say it right.
PNPLC. It's hard to get the order. So yes, we've had to do a lot of adaptations since the...
Okay. So Lisa, before we finish, we're going to wrap up and we'll be back in about a minute. So stay tuned. We'll be right back and you can tell us about some of the programs.
Awesome.
Hi, welcome back to That's My Story and our guest, Lisa Lou. How are you? We're back. So we were talking about, that you've been with the Georgina Nurse Practitioner led clinic since 2012, and that part of the role that you've been involved in is working one-on-one with people, but also that you organize different programs for people. And I was asking you, is it just for people that are part of the clinic, or is it outside?
Mm-hmm. So we do offer a mix of different programs. Currently, with some of the changes that's happened with the pandemic, we're now offering a lot of virtual, group webinar type programs. And yes, a lot of these we are offering to not only patients that are registered with our clinic, but also, people in the community and residents in Georgina as well. So as of right now, we're still planning for some of the programs for the new year, but definitely stay tuned, and we'll have some announcements coming out on what kind of health education programs that we're going to.
So I think we'll be posting a website, because that would be fantastic, because I think everyone's looking for something and to do during this kind of crazy time of lockdown, which I guess has affected your organization as well. So I think doing things virtually is quite wonderful. And how is it with patients? How do you work? I know what you're doing with me. Is everything via Zoom or your platform that you use?
Yeah, so we offer, a choice. We can offer appointments through the phone, and we also offer appointments through video chat.
Okay.
So both of those are, the video chat we make sure we use a secure system so that everything is still confidential. In some cases, and particularly for the nurse practitioners, they do still have some patients coming in for things that just can't be done virtually.
Yeah.
So. Mhm.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the role when people come to you on a one-on-one, and in your role, because it's very clinical, but it's not clinical at all. I think all of um, the names that you have seem very clinical, but as a dietitian, you're working one-on-one with people. There's a real human connection that you experience. How is that for you when you're working one-on-one with people?
Definitely. Yeah. It's a lot of listening, right? It's listening because everybody has their own journey, everybody has their own story, and everybody has a different relationship with food. And so I think, one of the biggest parts of my job, which I didn't know when I was still in school, is you just listen to people, and you kind of help them make changes in the areas and in ways where they're able to, because something that might work for one person is not going to work for a different person. So it's a lot of just listening and kind of tailoring some of the recommendations that I would be giving.
One of the things that my experience of you is I would say things and it would take a long time to express what I was going through. And then you were able to wrap it up so neatly and hand it back to me where I could understand, like, oh, that's what was going on with me. And I think many people can relate that, many of us have gone on diets and lost weight, gained weight. And part of the journey and coming to you was you really helped me restore a relationship with food and nutrition. But you also introduced me to something, mindfulness about food. And so is that something you get involved with and understand is mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a huge part of what I do, and it's a growing part of what I do. So, I'm also learning more and more about it as I work there, and I just find for a lot of people, the diet culture has really taken a toll on a lot of people. People who and taken advantage of people who just wanted to do something to improve their health. And mindfulness is something that I find you get the same results, if not better results, actually, in a much more positive way. And it helps people it empowers people to kind of take the control back, right? And being the person who decides, like, okay, well, I want to eat this and I'm going to enjoy it and I'm not going to feel bad. And just there's that positive note to it that makes it work so well for people.
So, and so that was one of the things that you made me personally aware of was but also what you did was help me start enjoying food again, which was really, a lot of us that have dieted have restricted ourselves for so long. And of course, coming to you, I didn't know what to expect because I thought you were just going to say, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this. And that was not at all the journey that I went on. And of course, my journey is personal. But I really thought you were just going to tell me this much portion. And it wasn't at all like this. So
yeah, because food is complex, right? Like our relationship with food is complex. And like I said, everybody sort of has a different relationship and we have to respect that. And I mean, if somebody needed like a list of foods to eat or not eat, they can simply find it on the internet. So I feel like my job is more so to kind of help people explore that and help them find that balance of still being able to enjoy food and have a good relationship with food, and at the same time also still be able to manage their health.
And I just wanted to say thank you because I'm just going to let everybody know that my blood sugar levels have gotten far more under control, and that's because of you. And because of me, but that is because of the journey that we've been on, and that was one of our successes. And so if I hadn't come to you, I don't know that I would have even understood how to start that journey. So big thank you. So you've been doing this, and I guess it became far more than you expected because you had done all the work and the education. But I think I asked you, what were your aspirations when you were growing up? And you were very sweet. You said, what did you say to me?
I said I had no aspirations. There was no room for that.
And of course, that just left me dumbfounded because I'm like, wow, that's all we talk about with our kids as parents is, what do you dream of? What do you want to do? What do you think you want to do? What do you love doing? And when I said that to you, you said, yeah, no, that didn't happen in you. You were too busy working hard, getting an education.
Yeah.
But things have changed. First of all, you got married a few years ago, so that was one of the things that changed. That was probably a dream, an aspiration, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then during lockdown, what kind of opportunities presented themselves to you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot more time at home, and I've always sort of wanted to do something more. Like, I mean, I love my job, I love being a dietitian, but I just always felt like that was not the only thing about me. Like, I'm not only a dietitian. There could be so much more of what I'm doing. And so one of the things that I started during this pandemic is I actually started my own business on the side. And it's a online retail store called 320. And
okay.
so what it does is it sells sustainable home and lifestyle goods. And it was sort of inspired by my own journey because, as you mentioned, I got married a few years ago, moved into my first home, and being a homeowner, you start, I guess, paying a lot more attention to the things you're buying and bringing into the home. And I realized very quickly that a lot of the stuff that I was buying, there's so much waste that's created on the side. And
like
so,
what? Give me an example. What did you notice of?
well, just, like I would buy groceries and it would come, in the styrofoam packets wrapped in plastic, or I would buy, personal care products and everything came in a plastic container, right?
Yes.
So all of these things, it was a lot. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, what can I do to, reduce some of this waste I was creating and just, be a little bit more environmentally friendly. And so that's the inspiration behind 320 because I want it to be a place where it's a one-stop shop, essentially, for other people who are going through the same thing, who want to, be more environmentally conscious and, live a lifestyle that creates lower waste, less waste. But it's challenging. And so if there's one place where they could just go to and find everything they need, I think that would make it a lot easier for a lot of people. So that's why I created this store.
So first of all, what do you say, 320? How did you come up with that as a name?
It's meant to be like sort of, it sounds almost like a countdown. So it's meant to
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's meant to represent like a step-by-step journey towards living more lower waste and maybe even a zero waste lifestyle.
It's interesting to me because it seems to be that through line that we were talking about earlier, which is mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me that you were taking mindfulness in another way, on another journey, which is being mindful of waste. And I have to admit, I don't know, I think obviously we have recycling and whatnot, but what sort of things, if I went to your website, for instance, how could I improve and be more mindful ecologically of not bringing so much waste to our planet? What are some of the things that I could work on?
I can show you some products as an example if you like.
Okay, let's see if we can see them.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the very first things I bought, after moving to my home. So this is actually a beeswax food wrap. And so essentially what it is a replacement for all the saran wrap that we use in our everyday life in the kitchen. So there's 3 sizes. So there's this one, a medium and a large, and they come in all different sorts of prints and colors.
That's pretty. They're very pretty.
Yes, very pretty. Yes. So essentially what it is, it's made with like a cotton fabric as the base. And then there's tree resin that's poured over it. So it's a little tiny bit sticky to the touch. But what it does is, I have a cup here so I can show you. What it does is, so let's say you have some leftovers on a plate in a bowl.
Yeah.
You can just cover it and then wrap it and it stays. So it acts like saran wrap. And because it's tree resin, it's a substance made, from trees. There's a breathability to it, so it actually can keep your produce fresher for a long time as well. So sometimes when I have like half an onion that's cut up and I don't know what to do with the other half, I just throw it right in here and wrap it right up, or like half a lemon or some cut of veggies. This is great for that kind of stuff.
Okay, so now wait, and can I put that in my recycling? Like, how many times do I get to use that? Once, twice?
No, so it's, I've had my set for almost 2 years now, and it's still going. It's definitely not as, nice looking as this anymore, but it's still going and I can still use it. It's still got that little bit of stickiness to it. And the best thing about this is it's compostable. So when you're done with it, you can just cut it up into little pieces and just throw it in your compost bin. So there's no waste left behind after you're done with this product.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. Listen, if somebody wanted to know more about it, can they go to a website?
Absolutely. So the website is www.tree20.com. I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram as well with the same name, Tree20. So you can find it there.
Wonderful. Well, Lisa, thank you for sharing your story and your journey with us. And thank you for making me more mindful in so many ways and learning about your new business under these new circumstances. I wish you every success. And again, thank you so much for being a guest on That's My Story. And thank you for watching That's My Story, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.